Welcome back to Grifter or Gifted. You know the drill.
Figuring out who's really changing the world
And just
in it for themselves.
this time, we're tackling Shaun King.
A figure who some people see as,
Hero.
and some see as, a con artist.
You guys sent in a ton of material.
Articles, social media posts.
An investigative report.
Spanning over a decade of his career.
And it is wild.
What I find so interesting about Shaun King's story,
Is that it?
it really gets at this question of how do we separate
from real activism
to self-serving social media, where it's so easy to
build a platform,
build a following.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's rewind.
Let's go back to the beginning.
Who is Shaun King?
And how did he become such a
prominent voice
in social justice movements?
So Shaun King's story begins in Kentucky.
Born in 1979.
And one of the first things that jumps out from the research is
an incident that he describes as a racist mob attack that he experienced in high school.
He claims that it led to multiple spinal surgeries.
Okay, so this seems like a pretty pivotal experience.
Shaping his worldview.
Right.
Right away, we see some conflicting accounts.
Some sources suggest that it was actually a one-on-one fight.
Not a racially motivated attack.
So what do you make of that?
That's a red flag.
Yeah.
Right off the bat.
It makes you wonder, why are there these different
versions of this event?
And, you know,
it speaks to a broader pattern that we see throughout King's career.
Which is?
That his narrative tends to
shift to shame,
leading to questions about
his reliability
as a narrator. So it makes it harder to assess
his later actions when there's discrepancy from the beginning.
Right away.
Yeah.
So let's move on then.
To his trajectory.
After high school.
Founding churches in Atlanta.
Yeah.
To becoming a major player.
In the Black Lives Matter movement.
What's that transition like?
Pastor to activist.
Yeah.
It's interesting. He gains a platform.
Very
his work with Daily Kos.
And later, the North Star.
Right.
While at the same time
leading all these fundraising efforts
for various social justice causes.
And this is where things start to get
complicated
and controversial.
But that's when we get the
whole issue with his racial identity.
Yeah.
King identifies as biracial.
Claiming his mother had an affair
with a black man.
But his birth certificate
lists a white man as his father.
So this sparked
a huge debate
about his authenticity.
Was he intentionally misrepresenting himself?
To gain a following?
To get support within the black community?
Did that controversy ever really go away?
It cast a long shadow
over everything that came after.
You can see in the sources that this controversy
planted a seed of doubt
in a lot of people's minds.
It really made people start to question his
motives and his actions.
So we've got this backdrop of suspicion.
As we move into the next chapter
of his career,
which is marked by all these accusations
of financial mismanagement
around his fundraising efforts.
And this is where
the grifter or gifted question
really comes into play.
We're going to examine specific allegations.
Starting with the Haiti earthquake relief efforts in 2010.
And then moving on to the Tamir Rice fundraiser.
Both of which raised a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
For our listener who may not be familiar with those cases.
Can you give us a concrete example
of what went wrong?
Okay, let's take the Tamir Rice case.
This was a case
that resonated with a lot of people.
Tragic case.
King launched a campaign on youcaring.com,
which is a crowdfunding platform.
And he raised $60,000 for the family.
Wow.
But then
what happened?
The family's attorney
publicly stated
that neither he nor the Rice family
ever received
any of the funds.
$60,000.
Gone.
That's a lot of money.
And that's where the lack of transparency
seems really stuck.
Raised some questions.
Yeah.
King's initial response, he had been in contact with the family,
but couldn't provide any evidence
to back that up.
So basically a
trust me
situation.
Yeah. But with a lot of money on the line?
Yeah.
It's understandable why people would start to question
where that money actually went.
Yeah, and then it came out later.
That the funds were tied up in probate court.
Meaning that?
They were placed in Tamir Rice's estate.
Rather than going directly to the family. For those of us who are not
legal experts.
What exactly does that mean?
So probate court handles the distribution of assets after someone dies.
So it's a legal process?
That can take time.
Delay access to funds.
Even if they're intended for the family.
So in this case...
it wasn't that the money
disappeared.
Completely.
It was in a legal process.
Making it inaccessible to the family.
When they needed it most.
Exactly.
But even with that explanation...
it still raises questions
about our communication.
Did King adequately inform donors
about the legal complexities, or did he create the impression
that the money would go directly and immediately to the family? That's a really important point.
about clear and honest communication when you're talking about,
fundraising,
especially in sensitive situations?
when you're dealing with vulnerable people.
Yeah, and that's a point we'll revisit as we examine other fundraising efforts.
Led by King.
And it seems like this lack of transparency,
What comes
it fuels the grifter narrative.
that starts to gain traction.
Let's move on to another one of King's ventures.
Yeah.
His Life Goals University.
Okay.
He launched this in 2013.
Right.
It was an online program,
Mm-hmm.
and for $49.99, he promised to teach participants how to
Achieve their goals.
live more fulfilling lives. It's a self-help genre.
Yeah, you see that
Everywhere.
So what makes this one?
Stand out.
Yeah, in terms of our,
Grifter or gifted investigation?
why are we talking about this?
Well, based on what you sent me, the
Okay.
program was plagued with problems from the start.
Oh no.
Participants complained about the content, like that it was
What were they saying?
poorly structured,
Yeah.
lacking substance.
Oh,
Many felt they had been misled
like
by grand promises
that he made.
during the promotional blitz
So over-promising.
and under-delivering.
Yeah.
And to make matters worse,
What happened?
the website for Life Goals University
Yeah.
abruptly shut down,
Oh wow.
leaving a lot of the participants
Hey, like how?
cheated and frustrated.
Oh man.
They had invested their money
Their time.
only to be left with disappointment.
And the question.
Where did their money go?
It's so interesting how this repeats itself.
Whether it's fundraising for a specific cause,
Or launching a for-profit venture.
there's this buildup of excitement.
And then when things don't pan out,
Yeah.
so when we're trying to figure out
Is this person?
a grifter,
Or are they gifted?
it seems like we have to look at
Beyond the initial hype,
sold outcomes.
did they deliver on their promises?
Right.
Were they transparent in their dealings?
Yeah.
Did they act with integrity?
And accountability.
Yeah.
So
I've seen a number of instances
where his actions
have raised some red flags,
and fueled that suspicion.
fueled a lot of suspicion.
How does he
Does-
respond?
Does he just ignore it, or?
Yeah, does he offer any explanations?
No, he doesn't shy away from the controversy. In fact, he's
do.
quite vocal in defending himself.
Okay, how so?
His defense strategy usually boils down to
Okay.
a few key points.
All right, lay it on me.
Administrative errors,
Okay.
lack of personal profit,
Mhm.
and attacking his critics.
So let's break those down.
Okay.
First, the administrative errors argument.
Okay.
Is he basically saying
Yeah.
that any discrepancies
Funds.
are due to mistakes or complexities of
Yeah.
these kinds of operations?
Exactly. He often blames bureaucratic hurdles,
Okay.
banking issues,
Yeah.
or the challenges of coordinating
Especially when it comes
of
to,
large-scale charitable efforts.
especially in places like Haiti, where
Infrastructure and communication can be,
unreliable.
yeah.
So shifting the blame to external factors
Right.
rather than accepting personal responsibility.
You could see it that way.
Okay.
His second line of defense
Okay.
is that he's never personally profited
From these.
fundraising efforts.
Okay, but has he provided any
Concrete
to back that up?
financial
Heard to it, anything that would clear up the confusion?
Yeah.
He's released some documentation.
Yeah.
It's often incomplete, lacks the level of
And
detail
no, really lacks the level of detail
that people need
to be satisfied.
to really believe it.
Critics argue
Oh.
without full transparency,
It's impossible to
verify his claims.
dispel those doubts.
Yeah.
It's another kind of situation.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about
The third point,
attacking his critics?
that's a tactic he uses frequently.
Okay, how so?
He often labels his critics as trolls
right.
or right-wing operatives motivated by
or a desire to
discredit.
him and the causes he supports.
So playing the victim card
Yeah.
and trying to shut down any legitimate criticism.
By painting it as a personal attack
Yeah.
or a politically motivated smear campaign.
And that can be effective,
It can be.
especially for his
Most ardent
or
follower,
see him as a
righteous crusader,
under attack. But for those who are
more
mild
skeptical,
deflection,
unwillingness to engage with
concerns.
legitimate concerns.
Right. This is reminding me of that pattern we see with a lot of
First your figures.
where they claim that anyone who questions them
is part of a
conspiracy or motivated by bad faith.
rather than addressing
Offensive.
of the criticism.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's get into
One of the most
controversial episodes.
in King's career,
His claim about
securing the release
of 2 Israeli-American hostages.
held by Hamas during the 2023 Israel-Hamas war.
This was
Huge news.
Yeah.
It seemed like a heroic act. King presented himself on social media as playing a key role.
in the hostages release,
He claimed to have been working
behind the scenes,
with Hamas in Qatar.
to negotiate their freedom.
Yeah.
That's a bold claim,
It is
like something out of a...
spy thriller.
So what actually happened?
The families of the hostages
Yeah.
publicly refuted King's claims
Yeah.
that he had no involvement in the release.
Wow.
They accused him of fabricating the story
Wow.
and exploiting a sensitive situation.
For personal gain.
Yeah.
That's
A massive blow to his credibility,
to be accused of lying about something so serious.
especially when it involves people's lives,
Yeah.
is a significant ethical breach.
Really raises questions about
His motivations and his judgment. This incident, along with other
controversial,
social media posts,
led to
judged
deactivating.
his account,
So not only was he accused of lying,
but his online behavior.
also led
And
to
his-
from a major social media platform
And this wasn't his first run-in.
with social media giants
His Twitter account was also
deactivated.
or deleted in 2021.
And we don't know exactly what
But
happened.
yeah, there's a lot of speculation.
They-
He may have been suspended by Twitter,
For violating rules,
but a Twitter spokesperson said,
that he deactivated the account himself.
oh, right,
So there's this pattern of
running into trouble.
on social media
Peter through his own actions
for decisions.
of the platforms themselves.
It makes you wonder.
There's a connection, his online persona, his
Yeah.
offline actions.
Yeah, is there a consistent thread through all of this?
Or are these just
Isolated incidents.
blown out of proportion?
A question that's going to continue to linger.
As we explore,
Other aspects of his career,
including
his business ventures.
his evolving focus on activism,
Let's move on to another area that's caused,
a lot of controversy,
which is,
his foray into fashion
okay.
with his clothing line, a real one.
Oh, yeah.
This venture, launched in 2021,
Right.
was met with immediate skepticism,
Why?
especially given the timing.
Oh, what do you mean?
It came right on the heels of those accusations,
Of
financial mismanagement,
for people who are already,
questioning his integrity,
yeah. And then he launches
a for-profit clothing line.
doesn't seem like
The
the,
most strategic move.
no.
It certainly raised some eyebrows.
Yeah.
Some saw it as tone deaf,
Others accused him of
trying to capitalize on his
fame to make a quick buck, potentially using his activist image to sell.
merch
Yeah.
and the name.
Yeah.
A real one.
It was
Diplomatic.
in retrospect,
Oh.
given all the questions,
About his motives.
it speaks to this carefully crafted persona,
The image of
That's
a
the
genuine
transparent
it.
advocate for social justice.
Yeah, but we've seen that
His actions
often contradict that image.
and that dissonance between the
Image is at the heart of
the whole
grifter or gifted
debate. Is he truly committed to,
making a positive difference.
or is he primarily driven by
Self-interest.
using activism as a means to an end?
Yeah.
It's a complex question.
With no easy answers.
It requires us to look at
Totality.
weighing the good he's done against.
The controversies.
Right.
We're going to
Right.
delve
Right.
into
Right.
that question.
in the final part of our...
Deep dive.
But first we need to address,
Another layer to this complex story.
which is,
The controversy surrounding King's racial identity.
so this whole debate about King's racial identity,
Some people say it's irrelevant to his activism.
right,
Others say
it goes to the heart of the matter.
authenticity.
Trustworthiness. Where do you fall on that?
It's tough
Yeah.
because on the one hand,
Mhm.
a person's racial identity is
So personal?
you can't
Just to a category based on,
how they look.
right. There are
Mixed heritages,
a fluid identities,
and all sorts of
individual experience.
that shape how someone sees themselves.
Right.
But on the other hand,
Yeah.
when someone claims a,
Specific racial identity,
especially in the context of,
activism,
it can become a matter of public scrutiny.
especially when that identity is used to
Gain a platform.
financial support,
Oh, so
Yeah.
in King's case,
because he built his career,
around being a social justice activist,
particularly in the Black Lives Matter movement,
those claims of being biracial are,
held to a different standard.
yeah,
And remember,
yeah,
We've seen King's own statements about his family history
Right.
and the circumstances of his birth
Yeah.
have been inconsistent.
At times.
And that lack of clarity
Really?
fuels the skepticism. It's not just critics
There are inconsistencies
in his own narratives.
that are feeding the skepticism.
Right.
But it's crucial to remember,
Yeah.
regardless of his actual racial identity,
Mm-hmm.
the accusations, financial mismanagement, misleading donors stand on their own.
Right. They're separate issues
That need to be addressed.
with evidence and accountability.
Not deflected by arguments about race
Right.
or attempts to...
Discredit critics.
Yeah.
So how do we even begin to assess the legacy
The Shaun King
he's brought attention?
to important issues
But his methods and motives,
have repeatedly been called into question
can you separate
on his search.
from the messenger?
That's the question.
It is.
And it's one that each person has to grapple with.
the
Information, judgment, developing a healthy,
skepticism,
critical eye,
especially in the age of social media,
where narratives can spread,
like wildfire.
regardless of,
Accuracy. Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the outrage. Adulation.
depending on which side you're on.
But we need to ask those,
Tough question.
who benefits from these narratives?
What are the motives behind?
The accusations.
Yeah, what is the verifiable
It's
truth?
the constant process of,
Critical thinking.
and more important now than ever,
In a world where information is
weaponized
manipulated.
for personal gain.
So what does all this mean for you, the listener? We've walked you through the Shaun King saga,
The rise to fame,
the controversies,
the defenses.
the lingering questions,
Now it's up to you.
to decide what to make of it all.
We encourage you.
to dig deeper.
Do your own research.
Look for the names,
Organizations,
the articles,
various sources.
not just the ones that confirm.
What you already believe.
Remember, the truth is often
More nuance.
than a viral tweet.
Catchy headline.
It takes effort,
Critical thinking. A willingness to consider.
different perspectives,
Even the ones you...
disagree with,
That's what it means to be.
well-informed,
Not just accepting what you're told.
be
Actively seeking out.
the full picture.
Even if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We're going to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
If you had the chance to ask Shaun King one question,
What would it be?
what would you want to know
To clarify your own understanding.
of this complex and controversial figure
Thanks for joining us
on this deep dive?
into the world of Shaun King.
Until next time,
Stay curious
stay skeptical.
and keep searching for the truth.